Hey guys, welcome to another episode here on bringspark.com. My guest today is someone that I've actually been trying to get on here for a while. Our schedules haven't lined up, but we could finally do it today, and I'm so excited about it. Now, this guy I met years and years ago through a mutual friend of ours named Morten Hake, who has done. Morten ended up doing the biggest conference in Scandinavia on self-development and stuff for years, several years. He had speakers from all over the world come in. He's done amazingly well. And basically it all started with my guest today, who's Michael Lassen, who had an instrumental role in creating ideas, in coaching, in all of this, in both Morten's life and tons of other people. I myself had a conversation with him about 3 years ago when I published a book. We went out, we had a burger at Fridays, and he gave me a bunch of insights on and ideas of how to market my book and how to kind of spread the word. The guy is a marketing genius. He never runs out of ideas, and he's got some insights that every time I talk to him, I'm left with new, just creative bursts of energy. So, Michael, thank you very much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It sounds like a great project.
Yeah, I'm excited about this site, and the feedback we've been getting from our viewers so far is, beyond the roof, beyond the scope of my hopes. But let's talk about you for a moment. Let's have the viewers, get to know you a little bit better, because I've given them the highlights, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you ended up doing it and stuff like that?
Well, first of all, I should sort of make a little warning in the sense that what I'm about to share is one of those things where don't do as I do, just do as I say, because I do way too many things, way more things that I would ever coach anyone else probably on the planet to do. But it is by choice and it is sort of by design. So I do quite a lot of things, like you mentioned, the thing I coach and consult in marketing and business, but I also do quite a lot of work with mindset and personal development and transformation. And the interesting thing was that I got into mindset stuff and personal development first around 20 years ago-ish with Tony Robbins. And I became one of, if not the youngest certified neuro-linguistic programming trainers from Richard Bandler in Scandinavia. And things went well. And I mean, already back then I could do some really cool things with people. And then I sort of discovered that, it's not enough to be really good at what you do. You sort of also have to be able to market and sell yourself. And so I was very fortunate to get introduced to some of the true legends and masters in direct response marketing in the US. And I quickly realized that, this is not only really, really fascinating, but there was also a lot of places where those things would overlap and where I would take things from one area and apply in the other. And so a lifelong passion was born with having those two different areas. And then for many, many years, I was kind of struggling between, am I going to focus on this, on the personal development side, the mindset, or the business marketing? Because I had the belief that I couldn't do both because that would confuse people. And then I think 5 years ago, a guy named Brendan Bouchard burst onto the scene and he did both. And I went, oh shit, you could do both apparently. And that's where I sort of embraced it. So now I'm very, very, very happy to do both. And I'm truly excited and passionate about being able to work with both areas with people.
That's very cool. Now, you said that, you found that a lot of the stuff that you'd learned and practiced in self-development part of your world also fit into the marketing part. Like what? Can you give some examples of what that might be?
I'd rather take the other way around. I mean, first of all, in marketing, the ability to know what's going on in your prospect and your target market's heads and in their psyche is truly important. It's much more important to have a deep knowledge of what they believe, what are their current thoughts, mindsets, conversation going on in their head, etc. That's sort of pretty well known. Mm-hmm. But I'll share one interesting example that I learned something from one of my mentors called Rich Sheffran in a very, very high-end workshop, something about chaining beliefs in your customers. So one of the things, well, I would say one of the mistakes a lot of people make in business and marketing is that they want to sell something that's way up here, and their customers are here in terms of where they are, what they believe, and building a logical chain step by step that will lead them to the conclusion that this is what they need can be really, really good. And so he had a way of doing that. And then I was talking to a good friend and a client who had some issues on the mindset level. He was also into business, and I took that and applied that in more of a therapeutic context, where we started out with, well, what was his big goal, and then we churned down and, well, what would need to happen before that, what would need to happen before that. That's sort of the short explanation. And he was completely blown away, and all of a sudden he went from not really believing that it was possible, his big idea, to like, shit, I need to go and do something.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's happened quite a lot of times where I've taken something, either from marketing and applied it in personal development and mindset stuff, and the other way around. And the interesting thing is that you mentioned the thing about, that's one of the things I'm known for is generating ideas, and not only ideas, but good ideas most of the time. And that's one of the ways you create breakthroughs in either in life or especially in business or in marketing, is that you take something that works in one area and you apply it in another area. And one of the ways to do it is use what I call the magical question, which is that, well, if I could apply this in this area, how would I do it? What would I need to do? What would I need to adjust, etc., etc. So it's really a good recipe for creating new things and creating breakthroughs, is looking at something sort of from a point of really deep curiosity and passion, something that's working really well in one area, and then go, well, if I could apply some of it in this area, or even just in my life, how would I do it?
So would you, like, because for as long as I've known you, every time there's a conversation about something or achieving something or creating something, or whatever it is, it seems like the ideas never stop coming. As soon as you start thinking about it, as soon as someone gives you a scenario, you just have this ocean of ideas. Where does that come from? Is that what you're talking about now? Is it your experiences from other fields that you're drawn, or?
I think it's a combination. I would say that it all comes from a deep sort of foundation of passion and curiosity. That's really the foundation of it. And then it is a lot of experience. I mean, God knows how many hours I've listened to coaching calls from, Rich Schifrin, Jay Abraham, some of the best in the business and marketing world, and the same thing in the personal development world. So I really put in the work in terms of acquiring knowledge. And then when you sort of is open, and you have that curiosity, you have that passion, and you apply that question I talked about, well, if I could use this, how would I? I think that's part of the elements. I'm actually thinking quite a lot about it because I've been asked to do some type of coaching programs, certification program, teaching people some of what I do, and like I mentioned to you earlier, having a working manual where it says, well, use your intuition, that's not going to make people happy.
Right. People want something actionable, something they can actually grab onto and
yeah,
like a tool.
It needs to be in most cases. That's one of the big things for me, that things needs to be hands-on, and it needs to be ideally measurable, because that's one of the things I like the least about the personal development, and especially if you go into the spiritual area, that there's a lot of really good fluff, but it's still fluff at the end of the day, in terms of there's no really how to do it. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then being able to measure a specific results.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about marketing, is that you can really measure things down to the detail, and dollars and cents, and you can't hide unless you have a branding agency and and work with big companies like Coca-Cola and stuff like that.
Right. So what would be your actionable advice for people? Because I get a lot of questions from people who they want to get better at what they do, and one of the points that they often mention is they're not, creative enough. They don't have enough new ideas. They're not ingenious enough. What would be some actionable steps to take for these people in order to develop their own creativity or get in touch with their own inventiveness?
Well, one thing that would not only help with this, but just in general, is the whole comfort zone talk that many people talk about and are aware of to a certain extent, that you need to get outside of your comfort zone really as much as possible. And sort of one of the things that I started thinking about a number of years ago is that I realized the power of stepping outside your comfort zone. That's necessary. It's been talked about for ages. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, because one of the things that all success coaches and success gurus or whatever talks about is the fact that what you focus on, you get more of. And then I went, well, it kind of doesn't make sense to talk about, crushing your comfort zone, stepping outside your comfort zone, expanding your, or whatever. You're focusing on the comfort zone. So I thought about, well, what's outside? Well, that has to be a growth zone where you grow. So that's one of the terms I use quite a lot, is that we need to spend time in our growth zone.
Mm.
And we also need to spend time in our comfort zone, because that's where we recharge. So we have the energy, we have the mental capacity to step and enjoy our growth zones. So that's one of the things, is that you need to embrace and have a willingness and an enjoyment of being in your growth zone. Realize that your ego is going to take some slapping here and there, for sure, and sort of have that either playfulness, curiosity, and ideally tie that up into the passion of what you're doing. Because if you don't have that passion, it's going to be uphill. Because if you are directly competing with someone who have that passion, it's going to be difficult at the end of the day, because what's worked for you is passion for them. So that would be one of the things.
Yeah, because you're talking about passion, and it's one of the things that I hear and read all the time from people. They're saying, follow your passion and you'll find your success, or whatever it is. And passion is a big word. It's something that a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to figure out, and what is their passion, or how can they turn their passion profitable, or whatever else. How do you know when you found your thing?
Well, it might sound like a cop-out answer, but the truth is that once you found it, you have no doubt. And if you're in doubt, that's not it. I mean, unless it's because that you have some type of unconscious blockage, some type of, could be a deservingness issue, it could be some type of fear, or what have you. But in most cases, even then, people will have that sort of spark coming from the inside, not from the brain. Not to take anything away from the brain sparks, but ideally, it starts here. The spark needs to start in here, or in the gut, or wherever you want to place it, and then it needs to transfer up to the brain, and that's one of the best ways to get the brain sparks.
Okay. So what about the people who do have that fear? Because you were talking about the growth zone, and to a lot of people, it's, leaving the comfort zone is really uncomfortable, and maybe they haven't really been doing it all their life, but they have this thing that they really want to do. They're passionate about it. They, ideally, they want to quit their job and go do this thing, but it scares them too much.
Yeah.
How would you help someone with that?
Well, I sort of have a big model that I came up with a couple of years ago, in terms of the whole fear thing, and sort of my train of thought in terms of fear was that I experienced with the clients I work with. I read and studied from psychologists to spiritual teachers, that well, most of them agreed that every negative emotion in some way can be directly tied into having something to do with fear. And then I thought again, well, if you're trying to conquer something, if you're trying to block something, it's going to be more difficult. It's sort of like mental Aikido being the sort of self-defense martial arts, that instead of blocking attacks and blocking the energy, you're redirecting the energy. So I came up with this concept and this idea that was sort of inspired by reading some studies in terms of cancer, where I'm not sure if it's been proven or if it's a theory so far that cancer cannot survive in an environment where there's oxygen, where there's plenty of oxygen.
Okay.
And I thought, well, fear is sort of like a cancer in the sense that it will cripple you eventually if it left to its own devices. And I thought, well, maybe the solution is that if we can create a mental environment that has oxygen where fear cannot exist, what would need to be in there? And then I came up with this idea, a combination of two different things. And the one being that, first of all, one of the big challenges for most people is to take action. That's where a lot of fear comes in. And I came up with the idea that well, how about thinking about it like this, that every time we take an action, only 3 positive things can happen. That either we get the goal that is the goal behind the action, or the second thing is that we can learn something really powerful from taking that action. And sometimes that can be even more powerful because that could be a learning, that could be an insight that when integrated and acted upon is the key to an even bigger goal. And then the third thing is that, well, you didn't get your goal, there's nothing to learn. And this is usually the time where people go, okay, so what in the world is he going to say now? Could be positive about that. Well, at the very least, we can use that as practice of keeping our focus where it empowers us the most. And having a strong focus is one of the crucial skills that we can have. So at least getting practice is cool. And if that's not working, then we automatically need to go back into the second one. That means that there's something we need to learn and integrate. So that was the first part, realizing that every time we take an action, we have the power, we have the control to turning into something positive. I mean, that's a big thing in of itself. And then when we combine that with, and this is my invitation to people I work with, and I sort of have this challenge for people that I believe that we all have different type of values in our lives. We can determine, how successful, how happy we are. And what I suggest is that if we take the value of learning and growing and place that as number one, if our number one value is to grow and learn, I think that's going to be the most powerful value we can have. Because so much of life, whether it's business, relationship, happiness, we need to grow and learn. There's, no staying in place, no status quo anymore. It's either moving forward or slowly falling behind. Mm-hmm. So if we can install that, embrace that mindset, that high value of growing and learning, and at the same time realize that no matter what we do, we have the control. And having control is really powerful because that's the number one thing that stresses us. And stress, just Google it. Stress will kill you at some point if you don't do something about it. It's insane, the studies that are coming forward the last couple of years. So control is truly powerful. And realize with this little mental model that you now have the control to take every type of action in your life and turning it into something positive. So that's part of what I call creating a mental environment where fear cannot exist. Because that's sort of my point, is that how could fear exist if we have that experience and that mindset that no matter what we do, we can learn and grow from it, and we place that as our highest value.
Right. So are you saying that you're helping people reframe the situation from being a potential loss situation to a, only gains are possible situation?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the stuff I do mostly in terms of mindset and personal transformation. I mean, right now we're in May. There's someone I worked with a couple of weeks ago who posted on my timeline on Facebook about a session we had where she had been going through her life with literally zero self-worth and zero self-esteem. And we worked for not even an hour, and now still 4 weeks after we worked, she's at a 10 out of 10. and she's literally a changed person. And she, at the same time, she even found her passion.
That's
and
amazing.
I got a note, and I actually think her husband wrote on the thread too on Facebook that it was amazing how he saw her take action now
Mm.
and be a joy and peace with the thing. And and that's exactly what I did with her, is that I took the number one negative experience that she's had in her life, and we found out how could she learn and grow from that experience, and how could that be her major focus going forward. I mean, that's not the only thing, but that's by far and beyond the central thing we did, and the central thing of the work I do with most of my clients is that taking the one experience or experiences that created the negative beliefs, the fears, etc., and turning it into something that you can learn from and you can grow from. So it goes from being something that keeps you back to something that will push you forwards.
That's very cool. So it's a deep-rooted reframe, not only of potential future situations, but you can do the same thing with your past situation and experiences as well.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is that, which is sometimes so funny, is that I use this on like deep personal work, but it also works really well in business in terms of the mistakes that you made in
Yep.
business, for example. Oftentimes that the lessons that are hidden within that is more relevant and more important than what you can read in some of the best business books. And sometimes it's the same thing,
All right.
but the fact that it comes from your own life and you have invested your own blood, sweat, and tears and time, what have you, it becomes associated. So it's not a disassociated learning that, oh, that's interesting, that sort
Mm.
of theoretically sounds good. No, it comes from the inside out.
Yeah, and that's my experience too. Is the more personal of a relationship someone has to, an event or a topic or whatever it is, the more it'll stick. Because,
Oh,
give
hell yeah.
someone here's a general idea of something, take a look at it, read through the book, see the videos, blah, 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 and you'll get it. And they'll sit down, but the books and the videos and all that stuff isn't talking about their experience. It's just talking about the world out there somewhere that they don't have that personal connection to. And most people won't be able to be as invested in that general theory as they would be in, someone talking to them about their life and things that truly matter to them.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm just curious how you do that. Like when you work with businesses and stuff, do you work with groups? Do you work one on one? How do you get this effect when you're working with someone who's not trying to improve their life, but maybe their revenue?
Well, that's we're looking at the past then and looking for what were either the single experiences that either has both an emotional negativity surrounded to it, but also a practical thing, something that led their business the wrong way. It could be a broken partnership, it could be even a failed campaign, etc. And the thing is that sometimes it's really sort of a breakthrough insight that they get, and sometimes it's something that they already knew. But the fact is that because it's tied up emotionally from experience, and they realize it, and then take a look at, well, how can we turn that into action steps? It's really interesting for me to see the direct one-to-one correlation of what people need to do in order to move forward that's tied into what they could learn from their past.
Hmm.
It's fascinating, and I'm still sort of both thrilled and boggled of how well that worked. And for example, I did that work with Morten that you talked about earlier. We did an exercise where like some of the things that we talked about today. And one of the things that he came up with was for his blog, and he came up with some answers of what his target audience, his readers, would like, and he felt really strong about it. He was like, yeah, that I can feel that. That's powerful. And then he got the idea that he wanted to do a survey on what his blog readers would like more of, and which is a pretty obvious idea in hindsight, but he hadn't done that.
Hmm.
And what freaked him out really substantially was that the top three that he came up with during that exercise was the top three that he got from the survey.
Perfect.
So it's some profound things you can come up with when you look at it that way.
Mm. That's really interesting. So he basically was able to get an insight into the nature of how things, like how his readers were thinking, just from exploring his past experiences and what he knew about them, and then he got that confirmed from the readers themselves.
Yeah, I mean that's another part of when I did the work with him was making sure that he was in a very very resourceful state of mind and very relaxed, sort of with alpha brain waves going on and things like that, and then yeah, taking him through not the world's most complicated process, but something where he really connected with what hadn't been found sort of optimal before, and then coming up with those answers that turned out to be 100% spot on. You
That's
know,
cool. Now you just said something really interesting. You said you helped him get to a resourceful and relaxed state. This is something that I get a lot of questions about because people, especially in business, they deal with stress and they deal with pressure from bosses or clients or whatever it is, and they have all this. So they try to sit down and they try to force the ideas out of their head and down onto a paper or whatnot. While studies show us that the times that we really have the great ideas and great insights is when we're not really thinking about it. You're in the shower or you're taking a walk, you're in the car on the way to work, whatever it is. That's kind of when our creativity seems to be working at its best. So how do you help people get to that point where they're in that state where creativity actually emerges, even though they're in a situation where they're trying to come up with ideas and answers?
well, in this case, it was it was easier because it was during a workshop, so there was peace and quiet. Made sure that he had blood going optimally in the front part of the brain where you need it. That he was calmed down his old brain, so he would be able to think clearly. And I don't remember exactly that. I think I did a short sort of alpha brainwave exercise where you sort of get a few more sparks of alpha brainwave. So I mean, there's plenty of ways to do that. The most important thing is to do one of them. It's not to say that it can't be a challenge, because yeah, if you have a screaming boss behind you, you can't just sit down and close your eyes and sit in a lotus position or something like that.
Right.
But it would be it would probably be too detailed to go into the specifics of that. But yeah, I mean there are different ways where you relatively quickly can access deeper levels of the mind.
So
And meditation in general is something that most people will have a big benefit from. And one of my sort of biggest pieces of advice in terms of meditation is that you add in intention to it. What I see a lot, and one sort of resistance I had initially when I learned about meditation was, oh, this is so fucking boring. And is it really worth it? Because you don't just meditate for 30 minutes and then everything is solved and you're ready to become a theta and alpha brainwave machine. So having the intention of really connecting with why you're doing it and what you're going to use all the benefits for, and ideally tying that into the passion we talked about earlier is a good place to start from.
okay, so how do you set that intention?
Well, I mean, for example, if it's a screaming boss or some stressful situation, is that, well, you could use the question I talked about earlier, is that, well, if I could find the answers to the problems or challenges, the better way of phrasing it, I'm looking for, what would they be? And you go into the meditation with the intention of getting some of those answers, whether you're actually working on them directly or just letting it sort of flow to where it needs to go.
Okay. So it's more of I'm not sure if I want to use the word goal, but focus-oriented meditation more rather than just a general, empty or clear your mind type feel.
Yeah, or at least if that's what you're going for, then have that be your intention. That okay, for the next 30 minutes, I'm just gonna completely shut up any thoughts and just really replenish my mind and reconnect with spirit if you're spiritual or yeah, well, basically whatever your goal is, your intention.
Right. It's very cool. I'm sure we could go deep into the brainwaves and everything, but
Oh yeah,
that's a bit beside the point. For
and
anyone
by
who,
the way, I just want to mention something funny because a couple of years ago, I had that specific experience you mentioned briefly with getting a really good idea in the shower,
Mhm.
and I wrote on Twitter that damn, why does all the best ideas come in the shower? And I actually got a response from a company who had created a waterproof thing you could put up in your shower. You could actually write on it.
That's
So
amazing.
that I thought that was a really cool way of marketing is that they were monitoring Twitter for apparently certain keywords, and then they responded back within an hour.
That's impressive. That's
Yeah, I
very
would say
cool.
so.
Yeah. So yeah, let's switch to marketing because that's we mentioned that in the start, but that's one of your big passions in life and one of the things that you do so very well. Why don't you start out by telling us what is marketing to you? Like, what's your process or your method?
Wow.
Big question, huh?
Yeah. Well, I need to readjust my schedule for the next 8 hours. um, I would say one of the better definition of marketing is salesmanship in print, for example, or marketing or if you want to contrast it to selling, marketing is the purpose of marketing is making selling superfluous, not necessary. That you engage people enough in your product and make them see and realize that the need they have, whether they're conscious of it or not, is a really good match into the product or service that you have.
Okay.
I mean,
So
that's
how do you know what, I mean, obviously you know what the product you're selling is, but how do you know how to satisfy those thoughts and client or customers that you've never talked to?
well, that's where research comes in, which is absolutely crucial, and it's only becoming more and more crucial because in business and marketing, there's more and more focusing on having smaller niches. And that's what in general is working better, especially, the smaller a company or a solo entrepreneur is going after a smaller targeted niche is more powerful because you can directly influence them much better than if you're going into a big wide market. So so realizing who you're going after, and like we talked about earlier, knowing what's going on in their mind, what's a day like in the life of your ideal prospect? What are they thinking? What are their challenges? How do they perceive their problem? Those are some pretty important places to start from. One of the big things is what are their beliefs? What are their experiences so far? Because one of the it used to be it used to be important to be better, and it's still a really good thing. But these days, it's actually more important to be different because you want to stand out from the crowd and from the market.
So how, I mean, there's a million websites out there selling products or services or whatnot. How can you stand out from such a huge group of diverse products and companies?
Well, there's a lot of ways. Let's just take one way of doing it is looking at price points. We both ourselves been doing a lot of coaching, creating coaching programs, and we know a lot of people who do that. And one of the big things that I recommend to people doing that, or in general, is look for where are the sort of where are these available spots on the price chain. So, for example, if everybody is selling something for $1,000 or less, or say from 20,000 and above that, well, maybe there's a sweet spot in between where you can fit in for people who are not ready or want to commit to a very expensive offer, or who want something more than what the cheap things can can satisfy. And also be the thing we talked about, niche it even further down. So let's say we have someone who is a life coach. Well, I don't know how many people Google life coach. We can check that later and maybe cut it in or not. But the difference between someone who feels low self-esteem, for example, if they search for coach and low self-esteem, if they see someone who is a low self-esteem coach or high self-esteem coach, and then they see a lot of general life coaches, well, there's a pretty big chance that they at least are going to give the high self-esteem coach a shot, or read what they have to say first. So I would say that's two of the big things. Is price, be different in your offers, price wise, and also in terms of being specific with what you can do for people.
Right.
And for example, that's another thing that's pretty powerful if you can do it, is looking at what are your competition, what are the problems that they are solving for people. And then if you have the mindset, well, if those problems were symptoms of a deeper lying problem, what would that deeper lying problem be? And then, well, if you can position yourself that you are solving that problem and not the symptoms of the deeper lying problem, you stand out in a really, really powerful way, because you can sort of make the position that your competition is sort of doing band-aid solutions and you're solving the real problem. And at the same time, you would be alleviating people sort of a lot of guilt, because people who have problems a lot of times feel guilt or even shame that, oh shit, it's my fault. And if you can make that point that, well, it's not really your fault because you've just been working at the wrong level, then that's a really strong, powerful motivator too for people.
That's very cool. And it also sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you do that, when you look for the deeper lying meaning and you market yourself, especially as, that's what you do, then you definitely have created a niche, and you might even have created one that other people don't really have or have thought of, because they're looking at the problem and you're going deeper and you're finding new words or explanation for it.
Yeah. And one of the resistance I get when I coach people on that particular thing is that they feel, well, yeah, but I can help people with so many other things. And I'm like, yeah, but would you rather actually help someone who comes as a client or be able to help a lot of people? So that's sort of the first thing to get people laughing a little bit and softening it up. But then also what's important to realize is that once you help people with one thing, you've built one of the most important thing you can do in business and marketing, which is the know, like, and trust factor. People trust you, they know you, and they like you because you help them with one problem. And then there's this psychological mechanism that people want to believe that you can help them with other things. And if you actually can, then it's a beautiful thing, because then you offer them the other things as well. But it starts with the one thing that you specialize on. And it's even sometimes to a ridiculous extent where one of my marketing mentors had been divorced 3 times to the same woman.
Wow.
and remarried. And he's very open about the fact that he had no idea what went wrong, either of the times, and he still says that in his mastermind groups is that sometimes, and he says it happens way too often, is that people will ask him for relationship advice. And he says, I'm the last person on earth you should be asking about it, but they still do. They still want him to have answers,
right?
Even in a context where it's really, really ridiculous. So realize when it works on that stupid of a level, it will certainly work on a more serious level where you actually have, and that's also the cool thing, is that then you don't have to be the best. You don't even have to be top 10 or even top 20 or top 30 or what have you, because you already have that going for you, that they know, like, and trust you.
And it seemed I remember my first business when I launched my first website in coaching and in training. I did that mistake that most new entrepreneurs who offer services do. I had this huge list of things that I could do for you and your company. And it was basically anything that I knew I could do. And in my mind, having more was better, because if someone came to my website and they were looking for one specific thing, then I might get them if I just had that thing on my list. So luckily, I had a conversation with someone, just a few weeks after launching that pointed this out to me and said, you know what, if you have a long list and you say that you can do everything, then it sounds like you can do everything, not too well. It's a lot better to have that one thing that you're really, really good at, and then get whoever clients are looking for that. And anyone who's not looking for that, just let them go. But in the beginning, to me and to a lot of entrepreneurs, I get a lot of emails and calls from people who are launching their coaching business and who want to know, how they can make it a full-time profession. And it seems to me that most people feel that it's counterintuitive to shrink it down to that one or two things. Most people think that the more stuff they can cover, the better off they are, because they can market more stuff. But you're saying the opposite. You're saying that you get that one thing and you make a name for yourself in that, then you extrapolate from there and build on that if you need to or if you want to in the future.
Yeah, it's the best place to start from. And if you choose to, you can do it with two different things, and then you can market them separately. So, for example, if it's let's say an anti-stress expert, well, you can market to business executives, and you can do it to athletes, but you want to have two different websites doing it, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it seems also to me that you have a lot more credibility when you're not trying to say that you can solve any problem in the world, but you're saying, I'm focusing on this thing and this is what I'll do for you, and I'm not going to do anything else. And that's at least not till after we work together, after we get to know each other. Yep. Because people who seem to have all the answers to everything in life usually just full of shit.
Yeah. And the other thing is that in general, people don't really like or appreciate what's perfect or what pretends to be perfect or even seems to be perfect. It even goes back to the days of when Superman got created, is that in the beginning they hadn't invented kryptonite. And after 6 months, sales were just falling flat. And they realized, because he was too perfect, nothing could happen to him. There was no... it didn't work, and then they invented kryptonite, and it was back up higher than ever before.
Yeah, I guess you see that everywhere. Like the hero always has his weakness, and he kind of needs to have that chink in the armor to be, liked.
Yeah, and you see it more and more in TV shows as well. Is that every major character has major flaws? That's how we engage with them and get emotionally drawn into it. Obviously you don't want it to be your weaknesses to be directly correlated with what you the major thing you do. Unless you're a rock and roll guitarist, and it's
yeah, you don't want to be a really stressed out anti-stress coach.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. So, what would be your best advice for people who want to get better at marketing? Maybe they have a small business, maybe they're a coach, maybe they whatever it is that they have that's kind of going okay, but they want to explode it. They want to make sure they want to increase their conversion rate or just even their traffic or whatever it is. What would be like, where do they need to start?
I think the most important thing you can do is focusing and working on getting some really strong case stories. Because the proof element becomes more and more important, because the sort of outer marketing can be copied and replicated fairly easy with a lot of software solutions. You can have someone who just got their coaching certificate yesterday, and they can buy ClickFunnels or Lead Pages and watch some videos, and they can have a beautiful opt-in page up and a webinar invitation and that sells coaching, and they're up and going, and it looks just as well as Tony Robbins' page, for example. So So one of the things to make you stand out is the testimonials, the case stories, and one of the really cool things these days is that if you have people write about their experiences with you on Facebook, using that is, at least for the time being, is working really well, because people see that as, if it's from Facebook, it has to be someone who's real.
Right.
Compared to, I mean, you know, not even that many years ago, that there were so many testimonials, and there still are to this day, where you see testimonials like, well, I had this incredible breakthrough, blah, 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 and then it's CH,
Right.
New York.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's
yeah,
I've
right.
noticed that too, because I have on my website, I have testimonials, but nobody cares unless there's an actual picture of the person with their name and stuff. A video obviously works well, or like a full name and a company title or something like that. People engage me about that. People will ask me about those testimonials, but back in the day when I just did simple, like just a name or whatever, nobody cared. Nobody even looked at it twice. So it seems to me that you need to have a somewhat personal connection, or the illusion of a personal connection to whoever's given the testimonial as well.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that even though people can either click directly and write to some of those people, it's very rare that they actually do it. But just the fact that they realize that they could do it if they wanted to,
Right.
is makes a big difference. And then once you have those case stories, maybe you don't have amazing case stories with everybody that you work with, but then that also gives you a clue. Then you should do a little bit of a sort of internal research, if you will, and look at, well, what are the commonalities between the ones that you have the best results with? And maybe that will give you some signs, some pointers to who could be a potentially even more niche down audience for you. So I would say that would be one of the ways you could start out, and potentially, if I had to make a scale of something that would be powerful and something that your audience hasn't thought about already,
Right.
I think that could be a good top scorer there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's individual, and that's another thing in business and marketing that's very important to a way to think about, is that you can have all the potential in the world, but if you only have one thing that holds you back, then that's the thing that determines your potential. It's not, the fact that you're certified and best friends with Tony Robbins and you coach Bill Gates, etc. Well, if let's say you don't have a website, that would be the constraint then.
Right.
If you still have an imposter syndrome, or don't feel you believe success, it doesn't matter. So having that both curiosity and potentially feedback from other people about what is your deepest problem, and at this, the same way I talked about earlier, looking at, well, you have these problems. Well, if those were symptoms of a deeper lying problem, what would that be?
Right.
That's a very useful way of thinking in terms of business and marketing. Is what is the number one constraint, problem, challenge that if you solve that will release a lot of potential.
That's interesting. So, and that's what you help your clients achieve, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's what's going to get the biggest results, the fastest by far, and makes me look really good, and establish, again, the know, like, trust factor of wanting to do more work and get even better results.
That's perfect.
So that's the same mindset I have.
Yeah. So anyone watching this who wants to get in touch with you and talk to you about this, or see, more of your thoughts, where should they go? What should they do?
First of all, they can find me on Facebook. I'm becoming more active there. Just search on Michael Lassen, I'll show up. You can also write to me privately at michael@deepmomentum.com, which is a new website I'm launching, where I'm going to be doing some webinars and offering some free coaching sessions for people, sort of discovery sessions, if there's a potential match. And I like to talk with people before going further and make sure that that's a good match, because that's also one of the things that I see is important in both in mindset work and in business and marketing, is that you have the abundance mentality. And again, like we talked about earlier, it's not just a theoretical thing, it's where you have it up on your vision board and you have it in your smartphone or whatever, that is actually something you live by. And the thing that can work so well is that the extent that you're willing to turn away some clients, that will attract the right ones even more powerfully. So that's one of the things I always do if I'm talking, coaching clients or consulting works, is that I always spend time. Actually, that's my mindset. I want to help people before they make a decision whether to work with me long term.
That's awesome.
And that's also a really good networking mindset, is that if you have that mindset of wanting to provide value first before you ask for anything back, usually good things will happen to you.
Agreed. Okay, well, thank you very much, Michael. Our time is up for today. I appreciate you being on here and sharing this with us. I'm sure we could talk about this stuff for a long, long time, so maybe we'll do another episode in the future at some point. But thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.
Bye, guys.
All right.